Ond da chi gyd, a bleser mawr gen i fod yma heddiw, ac yn rhaid i fi bach o'r fentas gen i fi, newid gen i fi enw Compodular. I haven't got my interpreter with me, however, I'll tell you a little bit about this project, and I'm pleased to be here today to have this opportunity to explain to you a little bit about the project papers that you have in front of you, tell you a little bit of what it's all about. However, before we start, I've got me down here as Compodular with it's going off the edge of the page with my website, which I don't know what that means. It bears no significance whatsoever, so please ignore that. Right, let's start from the beginning. I come from a farming background, and an extensive farming background in North Wales with sheep, cattle, and goes back probably. Well, I started farming in 1979 and got married, and we covered an extensive farming background of maybe 4,000 or 5,000 sheep in North Wales, and probably the similar amount of acreage. However, in 1979, when I think Margaret Thatcher came into power, we all know I've not mourned her death, I'm afraid. She was the first nail in my coffin as a business. However, as years passed and interest rates were then, I think the recession that we have today bears no real comparison in my book as to what we faced back in those days when interest rates rocketed up to approaching 20%. So, unfortunately, our farming business, although we were managed to control things, and we started a business in 1988 known as Hemblas Country Park on Anglesey. It became a successful tourist business, which had, I suppose we took in approaching 70 to 80,000 visitors over the year. However, in 1987, the Chernobyl cloud, the Chernobyl disaster from Russia, came over and deposited its cesium onto the hills of Snowdonia, Scotland and Cumbria, which sadly ended up as the final nail in our farming coffin. As time passed, we had to reinvent ourselves completely, and we had to move out. And as time passed, my only skills, you draw on your skill. I've been brought up in a farming background with no academic background whatsoever. So the only skills I had were probably training horses. And I started deciding, well, what are we going to do? My wife and I walked out of the house. The back manager walked in from the other side. And the only skills I had, we started a tourist business in Beaumaris known as Magical History Tours, giving horse and carriage tours to the public and carrying them around in costume. And we started another business likewise in Llandudno and in Betws-y-Coed, which I mentioned to you earlier. And we had nowhere to keep these horses. We trained people up to work on NVQ and grandfather rights, which I had. And the years time passed, we still had all these horses and nowhere to keep anything. So I approached Penrhyn Estate, whom had a derelict farm yard known as Hendra, which is about 2 miles out of Bangor. Derelict was probably the understatement, it is totally overgrown, but acquired Hendra on a peppercorn rent of £10 a week, which meant that we had to invest a lot of time and effort. Anyway, it enabled us to get the premises we needed for our business. I sold the Betws-y-Coed business and the Llandudno business to raise a little bit of capital and to build our home, and have since continued to develop Hendra Hall, as it has become known, as an entertainment venue. Hendra is a magnificent building. It's a Grade 2 star listed premises. It's a courtyard, a magnificent quadrangle courtyard, protected by Cadw, and which of course has been very restricting in what we can do to the building. But as a venue, we've developed to become quite an iconic entertainment venue in North Wales. We do small festivals, we do concerts, we do classical, we do everything. And we do lots of weddings. So essentially Hendra has now become our core business. I have a small farm on Anglesey of about 20 acres, which we've developed as my wife has runs a small equestrian business. And over the years and through my experience in working with animals and on the land, the concept came to me, well, how can we harness working with horse shit, horse manure and everything else? How can we try and harness the energy that's given off undegraded green waste? So as time passed, and we're now back in 2009, 2010, we decided, with the assistance of Mentor Morn are an enterprise agency on Anglesey, I approached Mentor Morn with my project and with the concept that I had, and they have been exceedingly supportive in the prototype development of my project. What you have in front of you is fairly self-explanatory. It doesn't go into detail, and the engineer, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a scientist, I'm a hands-on farmer, biology. But the project has moved on very well. We've achieved 2 prototypes now. We've achieved successful heat holes, and I think if we go through this, what you have in front of you, and it's fairly self-explanatory. I think the items mentioned here, we all cut our grasses, coppers our hedgerows, all the items mentioned there is waste. All kinds of what people can throw away, it's all there. We feel it has huge benefits to the community and worldwide. It's a passive heat exchanger. It works on the principle of microbore, copper, and alternative plastic material now. We've developed the project. The cost that you see referred to there has come down considerably. We've now sourced plastic pipe substance which has a similar thermal capacity or thermal absorption as copper. Of course, it's not as vulnerable to the metal market as copper, which is very vulnerable in the demands of the world. So we're looking forward to take this project forward. The university have become very more positively involved recently. Stuart has been very supportive, and of course we're now more involved with the Biodiversity Centre, which hopefully will give the input for the scientific breakdown of how various materials and how they perform in a practical manner. So I'm not going to say any more. That's a little bit of what's going on. It's an exciting project, and I look forward to taking it forward. My son now takes over the entertainment business, so I can focus on this. I'm not a scientist, so don't throw anything too technical at me, because I will answer.